Welcome to Copy Chief Radio. Today's show is a new breed episode where today's most innovative marketing and copywriting stars share their most effective methods for optimizing results in the fast-changing world of direct response marketing. To check out all the Copy Chief Radio episode types, go to copychief.com/CCR. Today, let's talk about your mind, your mindset. What the hell are you doing? Seriously, what is going on? We're all guilty of this. We buy courses, we set intentions, we get excited, and then maybe we open it up, we watch the intro, maybe we put it on our calendar and say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make time for this. Somehow, I don't know what happens. Something else comes along, excites you more, or, you just lose. You get off track for a day or something. Next thing you know, you got another thing sitting on your hard drive that you didn't do. And that's adds guilt, and it's a nasty hole. Should we feel really bad about that? Is there a way to fix it? It's hard to say, but there must be, right? Because other people sure seem damn productive. So if you're tired of watching other people seemingly get lots of shit done and wondering why you're your worst enemy when it comes to that, that is what today's episode is about. And I'm talking with my good friend, Brian McCarthy. Brian is one of us. He is a copywriter and now primarily a coach. I'll let him talk about how he describes it. I would say it's like a mindset and productivity coach. I know that I coached Brian for years. We've worked together for years. And Brian's always been someone who invests a lot in his own development. I know he's worked with very high level coaches and invested a lot in the work he's done on himself. And so it makes a lot of sense that he's having such great success with the people he's coaching on their mindset now. So Brian, thank you, brother, for making time for this. I'm super excited for what you're doing. And hopefully today we can open up some new neural pathways for people to get some shit done.
Oh, heck yeah, baby. Neuroplasticity and all those other buzzwords everyone uses over and over.
It's like one of those things where it's like you hear about something like that and you're like, oh, that makes perfect sense. Well, am I going to read a whole book on that? Right. It's like, you know what I mean? So it's like, it feels like this is never ending learning path we have to be on to get anywhere.
Yeah. And well, guess what? We are on a never ending learning path. That's just how this goes. I think there's always that thing of like, well, once I hit that next level, then everything will just be comfortable and easy and great. It's like, no, then you just got more stuff to do. But we can totally hit more on that whole thing. As you were describing it, I was like, that was so me for so long. And I remember being in your super group, something you said stuck with me that I still think about it all the time when because I would just drag my feet on things, have this idea, not really do anything. Oh, I get this other client work. I'm busy with this thing. And you were like, whenever you actually do something with your ideas, it works out well.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, how about that?
Yeah, we'll get into that. But you were a particularly interesting, say, student with that, whereas everything you did worked and your ideas were always great. Usually on most calls, we would end up getting really excited. And you always got me excited about what you were doing. Your case studies, it just always made perfect sense. And I'm sure you're getting this now. When you're a coach, you can just feel when something aligns and you're like, oh, this is the thing, it's going to work. But for some reason, you just would lose interest in it pretty quickly.
Yeah, I would do exactly that. I would get distracted. And that actually had to do with a lot of deeper mindset stuff. So that's what I learned over the years of I'm just so busy with client work. And it's well, okay, actually, no, you're not busy. You just you haven't set up the right structure around eliminating bullshit distractions like internet and Facebook and stuff. And then you've also got deeper self-worth issues that are causing you to be afraid that your copy is not going to be good enough. You've got to rewrite this email 10,000 times, even though draft 3 was fine. Even taking on extra work. I know a lot of people do this, they'll have their kind of coaching call, copy critique, and then the call's over. Then they go and do this extra work for the client for free just because they're oh, I want to make sure that that you're getting enough value. It's no one asked you to do all this other stuff. We're just doing it because we feel insecure and we're not doing enough. That was really it. It was a lot of my own fears around not being good enough for my clients that was really keeping me stuck in this cycle of being too busy or just not having that clarity of exactly what I wanted to do, or just not really believing in myself. And then, client work, I'm so busy with client work, basically became an excuse. So that was one part of it. Another part of like why I would kind of lose momentum, and that's how I ultimately switched away from marketing into coaching, was like, I was super into nerding out on marketing my first couple of years as a copywriter, and then hit that point where I'm just like, I just don't care. Like I don't want to study funnels anymore. I don't care about headline formulas. Even talking about case studies to my list, I was just like, I just don't want to be doing this.
This doesn't light me up.
Yeah. I was like, I see a path where I could have been doing all this big stuff with case studies. Who knows? Maybe I'll go back sometime and it'll happen. But I was just like, I just don't want to. And the thing that kept exciting me more was more the mindset work, the personal development work, that kind of like work. I was like, that's what I've always had a little bit of a pull towards, but I always thought like, oh, I could never do that for whatever reason. So that was the other part of like, why am I dragging my feet? Like sometimes dragging your feet is just a sign that you're chasing the wrong goals. My whole goal was, oh, I've been making 12K a month. Let's get it up to 20. And like, why?
Right.
Because that's what everyone else is doing.
Right.
Because then I can feel validated and good enough. And so actually switch. So once I kind of switched from that to like, what would actually inspire me, light me up? And okay, maybe it's not some of this marketing stuff. It's actually just have really in-depth conversations with people for an hour and change their fucking life and do that over and over. Yep, that's what I want to be doing.
That's awesome, man. And so what was the trigger? Because I know you were writing copy, and may still be for all I know, with a very well-known coach. I don't know if you want to name names or protect privacy, but was that kind of where it started?
We can name drop, baby.
I don't think she'll mind.
No, Rhonda Britton's fantastic.
Rhonda Britton.
I believe she was the one that had mine.
She's amazing. If you don't know about Rhonda, she's just one of the best. She was like the first person to ever do like self-development on television. And she was on Oprah in the beginning. And so she has courses and does coaching. And so you were her primary copywriter, and you started really getting excited about her program, as one would want to do as a copywriter, but it doesn't always happen.
Yeah, I saw Rhonda speak at Copy Chief Live and was like, well, this woman's amazing and is saying some really smart things. And then hit her up like a year later of like, you want case studies? She's like, sure. So we started working together. And then like the kind of turning point moments, there's a couple. One was like I was doing her case studies and I'm interviewing these people and they're talking about like going through her programs and finally getting clear on like doing what they feel like they were meant to do in the world. And I was like, do I feel like I'm doing what I was meant to do? No, I don't think I was put on this earth to write case studies or to create another marketing system. Maybe some people were. I don't think that was for me. So that became like, okay, maybe there's some other paths I need to start looking at. And like the idea of like taking her, Fearless Living certification program had been like popping up in my mind for like every month or two. I just think about it like, oh, that'd be nice. And then after like a year or two of that, I was like, okay, maybe things that continually gnaw at you for years at a time actually have some validity. And maybe it's worth taking a little step in that direction. So I joined the program. And then once I actually started coaching people, I was like, oh shit, here we go. Yep, this is it. Okay, this is what I want to be doing.
I love that. Yeah. And, I just want to pull to the side of the road a second. And this is the beauty of copywriting to me, is that it allows you to explore other things that you have interest in and learn about them. And like in Brian's case, sometimes you go, I actually like this better. And then you get obsessed with it. And then you become a great expert for a client first. But we've seen this many times where people adopt their favorite client or project or niche or protocol, whatever it is, program, and make either that the starting point or create a version of their own. Is part of the amazing thing about being able to call yourself a copywriter, because people have to let you all the way into their business for you to do your work. And you doing those interviews with people, it's really cool that you're sitting there like doing your job as a marketer, and you're probably like sitting with your chin in your hand going, I want that.
Yep.
Very cool. And so So now you are doing more of that than copywriting. Are you doing any copywriting at all anymore?
Yeah, I'm still doing. So I'm working with my one client in the parenting market that I've been with for a while.
Right.
So I'm still doing work there, and she's calm the chaos. She's got a book coming out in August that's going to be amazing and kind of like change the way a lot of parenting is done. Her work is absolutely phenomenal, especially if you have challenging kids. So I'm going to give her a plug because her stuff is awesome. Yeah, so like I was doing a little copywriting. Just I feel like my work with her isn't quite done yet, and there's some things I want to see through. And then every now and then people come to me for like case study stuff or whatever. But for the most part, I've been focusing on the coaching because that's just what really gets me excited.
How are you going about it when you coach people? I imagine you have a kickoff call, and then is there a system after that, or how does it work?
Yeah. So actually, I restructured how I do this. I just read this book, The Prosperous Coach, which like just gave me a system that sounded awesome, where it's just like, you just connect with people, then you do a 2-hour coaching session, change their fucking life. And either they want more or they're just going to be like, all right, like I'm good. Okay, coaching's not for me. It's not the right fit or whatever. But then they go off into the world and, they're going to tell people about that great session they had every now and then. So it's like just building, I got these all these marketing skills, but I'm like, nah, I kind of like this idea of just building through word of mouth, just by invitation only, through referrals, and by just getting all the results and letting that kind of build the practice.
Yeah. It seems like every really amazing coach or practitioner or therapist I've ever heard about, they're like, I can fix you in one session or a short series of sessions. And I always go like, yeah, that makes sense. Because then they just sort of describe why and how it works. And you're like, yeah, that is how it should be. Probably not to get into any negative weeds or anything, but therapy and talk therapy is probably mostly designed to keep you coming in the greater industry of it, I would imagine. Huh?
Yeah, I don't know too much. Like I got an undergrad in psych, but I don't know too much about it. I mean, that's just like, that was like one of the first versions of therapy. So like that was just them trying it out. So I don't know if it's necessarily about like, how do we keep the retention high? But But yeah, that was like their first swing at it. And since then, things have evolved quite a bit. And, not to not talk therapy. I know a lot of people that still find that very beneficial.
Sure.
I don't know. It's interesting you say that. I get some of that. And like, there's also like, there's, things that can be switched and changed very quickly. And there's a lot of different layers to life, a lot of different problems you'll run into. Like once you hit that, like, okay, you get some like block or whatever it is removed, you get your vibrations raised up or whatever. It's like, well, you're still a human. You're still going to run into other like issues, communication with your team or whatever it is. Like, even if you like, you get your confidence problem fixed or whatever it is, like, okay, well, confidence isn't everything. You're still going to have issues. So so that's a lot of, what we just do.
Very cool. But I love that idea of let's have a 2-hour session and figure it out. Because then you are not committing. You're not asking them to commit to a long-term thing. It'll happen organically if it should.
Ask any experienced freelancer and they'll tell you that getting started and landing those first few clients, it's the hardest part. If you're struggling to find consistent work, you want to build more confidence in your skills, or you're just starting out in your freelance journey, don't worry. That's exactly why I created Escape Velocity. It's my step-by-step coaching program for how to kickstart a freelance career, attract quality clients, and confidently deliver great work. Let me help you find and close good gigs so you can quickly launch and grow a successful and sustainable freelance writing business. Learn more at copychief.com/EV. Copychief.com/EV. I'll see you there.
All right. So let's talk about, since you have unique qualifications with freelancers, copywriters in particular, let's dial in on procrastination if we could, because I think this is a thing that we all know is probably way more mindset than logistics. And so what's going on there?
So I'd say there's a couple things that can be going on. One, like I kind of mentioned before, sometimes it's just a sign of a bad goal. Like I was talking to a copywriter a couple of weeks ago, he had a nice little life, 20 grand a month, not working very much. And now he's like, okay, I got to get it up to 40 grand a month. But like, that's my goal. And I want to do products, all this stuff, but I'm just like dragging my feet and I'm not doing it. And then as we were talking about it, I was like, okay, why are you not doing it? What inspires you about this? And he was just like, nothing really inspires me. I just, figure I need a goal and this seems to be what everyone else is doing. And so that's part of it. It's like, if you're just following it because that's what everyone else is doing, it's what you feel like you should be doing. If these goals are just coming from Instagram and all, like gurus and all this other stuff, and it's not coming from actually inside of you, sometimes procrastination is just a signal of you, like, this ain't it. Like this is not what lights you up. This isn't really the thing for you. You're just chasing some bullshit goals that are probably going to leave you empty, even if you hit them. So that's one bit. I think another bit is sometimes it is just those like external things of like, okay, like how do let's set systems up to help with the work. But a lot of times it's also deeper fears. So like I'll give one example, Bronco, who a copywriter for not a legacy. Yeah. He had these big like problems with procrastination. He mentioned like for most of his life, he always needed like that deadline and the pressure in order to get things done and all this stuff. Tried all the productivity tools. Nothing was really working. So we dug deeper into like some of the core fears that were keeping him from working. So like a lot of times it's like imposter syndrome or like fear of failure, all this stuff. And for him, it was like interesting because he wasn't even like consciously aware of this really, but it was his girlfriend, Rachel, who, your CMO and super hardworking person. He was worried that if he stopped procrastinating and like finished his workday by 3 p.m., which was his goal, he was like, oh, what if I do that? And then Rachel sees me and I'm like playing video games at 4 p.m. and she's just like, get your ass to work. What are you doing? And once he realized that was the fear, he was like, wait, Rachel's not going to care. They talked about it. She's like, do whatever you want. Like having that realization of like, oh, that's what I was afraid of, helped him to like, okay, now he's able to sit down and get his work done. So like that was a huge like needle mover for getting stuff done. So often it's stuff like that. Or I'll give another example. Another client who like was launching her podcast, but dragging her feet on it. And it was a lot of just fears around, what if nobody likes it? What if it fails? All this stuff. Like, who am I to do this? And then understanding that fear and learning how to deal with it. Like one of the tools that was helpful was just focusing on the one person that she could help with this, like having fun with it and focusing on who she could help versus like what the masses that helped her to actually get through the work. And then she started to enjoy it. And another piece of that was like getting clear on what she enjoyed about it and offloading the pieces she didn't like. And so, like we worked on that together. And then, she went from dragging her feet on the podcast for months to launching it and having an awesome time and, getting tens of thousands of downloads.
Yeah. And I think I know what you're talking about. And she like finished her whole season like 4 months ahead or something. And so what wasn't even like a full-time, she was just got that good at it. Once she had that release that you helped her get. That's awesome. You said something really interesting to me, and the Rachel and Bronco thing makes perfect sense. And it seems like a little thing but if it's in your head and it's an unsolved question, it's like a negative open loop or whatever, you're going to avoid it. And you're going to almost create bad habits to help you avoid confronting what might be a problem. Right. And so of course, Rachel being so cool, like, of course she was like, oh, that's sort of silly. Like, I'll be happy for you if you finish work early. Don't worry about what I'm doing. But what if somebody's partner is not as supportive? You know what I mean? Because then obviously that creates a whole bigger, I think, because one of the things I think that keeps people from exploring solutions is the classic thing of, okay, now I'm raised up, but the people around me aren't coming with me. We want to believe like, no, you'll just be better and other people will see the results and they'll want to be better too. But what if that's not the case?
Yeah. Sometimes, how you're saying, like sometimes people kind of just want to keep you at their level because otherwise you become proof that they could be doing more. They don't want to confront that and they hold you down.
That's right. Exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like in some cases, it can just be about like, not really like, if it's a friend, then it's about like kind of, okay, being careful about what it is you're talking with your friend about. And like, okay, if you're not being supportive in that, then not bringing up business stuff with them. If it is like a partner, yeah, then that involves, I mean, that's kind of, it becomes its own thing. Like, that's exactly what you're talking about, of like how you can't just solve everything in one session all the time.
Right.
Of like,
right,
yeah, you
right,
solve one
right.
thing and that opens up this new problem. So that then becomes like, okay, now sitting down with them and having an open conversation without judgment, without like shame or blame or pointing fingers, and really talking with them about how they're viewing, like what's holding them back, how do they view it? Because, you know, and if you do a good job of it, they just might have that realization of like, oh, actually, I like I mean, they probably will see that the reasons they're doing it are kind of bullshit reasons. So yeah, I mean, that next step then becomes having a talk with that person and figuring out how to make that work within the context of your relationship, which could involve them having some insight or you putting up your own boundaries of like, okay, well, what matters here? Is it worth you not doing this to not rock the boat? Or do you need to do what's right for you and kind of let them react how they react?
I mean, that's the consequence. The worst crime is the sort of lowering your expectation and trying to adhere to complacency rather than go find out what you're capable of, even though the idea of such a dramatic change might feel like the worst thing ever. You see people all the time who change their circumstances in a dramatic way. They move, or they escape an abusive relationship, or they escape from the surface of nice seeming relationship, and then they flourish. They had friends and family who have separated. And, you know, after all the emotions are done and things are kind of settled, I remember like going to one or the other's house and they have everything how they want it. And I'm like, oh, you were the clutter bug, you know, and I didn't realize that. I thought it was the other person, but finally they are in control of their environment and you can just see they have this peace about them. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, totally. Like, I mean, that's huge. And then also like finding out what exactly it is that's in their way holding them back. So maybe it is that fear of like, I don't want you to elevate because then I have to look in the mirror. Or maybe it's like, we got kids and I want to make sure that they're fed. So then the conversation becomes, how can I do this thing and step to this next level? And while we make sure our kids are fed, and so you don't have to worry about this.
Right.
You know, it really depends on like, it's about having that conversation and seeing what is holding them back.
Yeah. How much do you think in your experience of talking to people, like, do we just get lulled into, well, I'm lucky to have this, so maybe I should just be happy, thankful for this?
I actually haven't seen that too much in the clients I work with directly. I do see it a little bit of like, yeah. And usually that comes from like messages from the parents of like, well, you should just be happy with what you have. Yeah. It's kind of like, well, how's that working out for you? Like, are you? Why let these kind of voices dictate what you're doing and how you live your life? Like, is that really true for you? Are you really happy with this? There is an element of like, yeah, learning to be grateful, enjoying what you have. And it's still okay to want more, to want to do more, to want to be more, to want things to change. It's I'm trying to like think of that Rumi quote of like you're perfect as you are and you could use some work. Like, yeah.
That's great. For whatever reason, the example I'm thinking of, because, you know, the end goal, if you see it all the way through, is that you can help everybody in your life do better, be better. And that's not that you're not obligated to do that, but probably at some point, the person or people you had to move on from will benefit from. I'm thinking of Jack White, who I'm a big fan of, right? And I'm a fan of not only his music, but just what he's built. Think about, you know, okay, you get the break and you get to become the White Stripes, and whether that sets you for life or probably not, whatever it is, you know, then he moves on to this solo career and he builds this third man empire. And now he's publishing other artists and he's really supportive of new artists and exposing them, and has just created such an amazing little force in the industry for so many other artists. But if he would have been complacent and said, I'm just lucky to have a gig, which I think probably a lot of artists do, none of that would have happened.
You can say the same thing about Copy Chief. You could have just been like, hey, you had a successful copy career. Hey, I'm just happy to do this. And now you started Copy Chief that's just given all these other people a platform and helped all these other people like get their careers going.
Thank you. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. No, but it's true. But, you know, when people say to me, wow, some people are like very complimentary. They say, I love that you're sincere and I love your style. And I always say, I feel lucky for that because I couldn't have done it another way. Like if I had to be Russell Brunson, it ain't happening. It's just, I'm not like you said, like that might be for other people. Good for them. I couldn't have faked that. You know what I mean? But I guess what we're coming back to is like, be true to yourself and you got to take some chances. You got to roll some dice. Like you were saying about the podcast and the things, like sometimes you got to go for it and realize this is for me. And I know it's going to help some people, but if I'm only thinking of stats and data, which is kind of the limitation of creativity and marketing sometimes, right? It all comes down to how did it convert? How did it perform? That really stifles creativity and chance takings a lot of times.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll actually give you one more example of the just be happy with where you are. Just from my own experience, which was like when I had my copy retainers, I'm making good money. I'm not like working too much. I have like plenty of time to go do archery and improv and all this like fun stuff in life. And I was kind of like, can't this be enough? Can I just kind of do this? And for me, once again, it was just like the constant kind of like little voice being like, well, you could also do more coaching, like, and like knowing the fulfillment that I get from it. So it wasn't like this like fear-based drive of like, I got to be enough. I got to prove myself. I got to do this thing. It was more about just this like, well, okay, like, can I just be happy enough doing this? And it's like, well, are you? Because, you're still having these thoughts of this other thing. So how about pursuing this other thing? Then I started doing the coaching more. And it was so cool because when I was a copywriter, I sucked at building my business. I never promoted myself. I didn't do that stuff. I was really bad. And then once I started like pursuing the coaching, like I was so lit up by it that I get my dinner ready, then run to my computer to write an email because I'm just like fired up about this thing I want to talk about. Like that's been happening a lot since I started to, again, listen to that tiny voice of like, yeah, like you could be happy enough, but here's an idea that just kept coming up.
Yeah. And, like you said, you're inspired. It's like, let me at the keyboard, right? Yeah. That's what we're looking for, especially with our own product. And I can tell you, as you're saying from coaching a lot of people through this, if you're not on fire about it, it just ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
You can't drag yourself into creating and launching a product if you're not into it.
That's where like a lot of copywriters can get tripped up is like you think you're into it because you're like, you think you're into like a certain niche of it or aspect or something because it helps you like get this lifestyle in a certain thing. And then like you get the lifestyle and thing and like, a lot of copywriters after 5 years, they don't want to write copy anymore. Like that's how it goes.
Right? And frankly, shouldn't have to if they're doing it right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you kind of realize like, oh, maybe like it wasn't necessarily this thing. It was like this thing was kind of a stepping stone to get me to this other place. And I almost feel like it's like the Maslow hierarchy of needs. I feel like that kind of goes along with your freelancer's journey almost of like, once you kind of get those basic needs all met, then it becomes about like what's really fulfilling here. And that's when copywriters like are like, I'm kind of done writing copy. I want to go consult. I want to go create this own business. I want to open up a cheese shop or whatever it is.
All real examples that we know. So cool, Brian. Wow, this is great. I could just looking at you and hearing you, I can see the difference. How you just look at ease and seeing you in Knoxville felt the same way, man. So I'm thrilled for you that you're listening to yourself and doing what lights you up. And I have no doubt that it's the same for the people you coach.
Thank you. It only took me 10 years of personal development work, Kev. So,
Yeah, I don't know if you've done the math on that. But again, this is not a tit for tat data proposition, but you've certainly made the investment. I know that much.
Yeah.
Cool, man. So I don't know, are you thinking of a next step of, I don't know, maybe write your own book or a course, or is it just like, let me just keep doing this and see what I learn before I go to teach?
Yeah. Right now I'm into the one-on-one coaching and potential group coaching. So I'm just going to focus on that for a while. The option for courses and, using my copy skills to, start scaling all that stuff. That's always open down the road. But for right now, I'm just really digging the coaching. So I'm just doing more of that.
Doing the real work. I love it, man. All right, Brian McCarthy, let's at least tell people where to go. McCarthyMindsetCoaching.com. Yeah. Well, I don't have the actual website up yet, but I do got a lead magnet that would be helpful for people. McCarthyMindsetCoaching.com/copywriters. It kind of breaks down overcoming procrastination, other head trash that keeps
copywriters from like branching off and getting their own consulting business going, start selling their own products, promoting your business. So it'll help eliminate a lot of the head trash and excuses and fear that holds people back. So that, from copywriter consultant, I think is the name of the thing. So go to McCarthyMindsetCoaching.com/copywriters, get that, hop on the list. I'll talk about this stuff more if you're interested.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely have links in the show notes. So be sure to go over there to copychief.com/podcasts. You'll see this as the latest episode and get all the links there. All right, Brian, appreciate it, man. Let's do more of these. I'm sure we have a lot more we can uncover and help people with in this industry. All right, buddy. Talk soon.
Absolutely. All right. Bye, Kev.
Hey, don't forget your goodies. Head over to copychief.com/copychiefradio to get some great free stuff to help you put the things you hear on the show into action for your business. copychief.com/CCR.